Hi everyone, welcome back. I hope you're all doing really well. Today, as you can probably tell, I'm actually coming at you from a bit of a different location. I'm back at my mum's house at the moment for a bit of a break from uni work. So I'm filming this video in her office with her bookshelves behind me. So I hope you like this temporary background. So today I'm going to be filming the My Pleasures book tag, which I was really kindly tagged to do by Claire over at Claire Reads Books. Definitely go and check Claire out, by the way, if you haven't seen her channel before. She's absolutely brilliant at reviewing books. She does it in such an eloquent and generous way, and I really hope that one day I might be able to review books like her. So definitely go and check out her channel, and thank you very much for tagging me, Claire. I really appreciate it. So I know that I'm quite late onto the bandwagon with doing this tag. Most people have already done it, or have seen so many other people do it in their videos. But I still wanted to do it anyway. I think the questions are really great. Basically, the questions centre around lots of different pleasures that we may experience in life. And the questions basically see how they are represented in books, or how books may add to those pleasures, if that makes sense. I just think it's a really cool concept. So the first question in this tag is Think, a book that made you think hard. For this question, I'm going to talk about South of Forgiveness by Thordis Elva. So this is a non-fiction book. It's actually the true story of a rape that occurred in the 1990s in Iceland. And the rape that occurred happened within a relationship towards a 16-year-old girl by her then boyfriend. So this book is primarily told from the point of view of the victim, Thordis, but it's actually in part told from the point of view of the perpetrator, Tom, as well. So this book is a collaboration between both parties who are both equally committed to exploring the rape that happened and to adding to the much needed conversation surrounding rape and sexual violence. So this book definitely made me think, and it made me think hard. And that's not just because sexual violence was discussed in this book, which is of course massive and very important and requires a lot of serious deliberation, but it was more because of the particularities that happened in this case. So the rape that happened within this book is a rape that some people may see as more low-level rape, or rape that is less clear. So the rape that occurred was within a relationship, and it was towards a drunk partner. So discussions of consent came up a lot in this book, and what consent is within a relationship and towards intoxicated people. And this whole discussion of consent is incredibly important and something that definitely needs to be discussed more, and something that people definitely need to spend more time thinking about. What's also very interesting about this book is that we get to see how the rape affected the victim, but we also get to see how it affected and why it may have come about on behalf of the perpetrator as well. So Tom in this book in no way tries to shift the blame of the rape or pities himself. He talks very openly about it and honestly, and accepts full responsibility for the rape on himself. But what this book does so well is basically looks at how our toxic rape culture affects everyone in society. So not only women, but men as well. So by no means was this the best book I've ever read, but I definitely think it was very worthwhile, and it definitely made me think very hard. I think thinking about and reflecting on social issues are very important, and this book definitely does that. Question 2 is Love, a book that broke or mended your heart. For this question, I'm going to talk about Wonder by R.J. Palacio. This is a children's book that I absolutely love. It's about a young boy called Oggy who has a facial disfigurement, and it's basically just about him going into mainstream school for the first time. There are just so many lovely messages that run through this book, the most famous one being to choose kindness wherever we can, which I'm sure you've all probably heard because the book is so famous now with the new film coming out, and choose kindness is basically like its tagline. But I just think it's so true and so simple, and if everyone was more kind whenever they could be, then I think the world would be a much nicer place. I also just love the family in this book. Family dynamics are often presented quite badly in children's and young adult books, I have found, but not in this one. It's just perfect. Oggy's parents are sweet and supportive, and I just love them. So this book is just an absolute joy to read, filled with lovely messages and lovely heartwarming moments, and it definitely managed to fix my heart a little bit. Question 3 is Eat, a book that nourishes you. So my answer to this question just had to be To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. This is my all-time favourite book, and It's definitely the one that I feel nourishes me the most whenever I reread it, at least on what I'm taking nourishes to mean. So whenever I reread this book, I always just end up feeling so genuinely happy and almost just like I'm at home. I just always come away from it feeling so much better and kind of like I'm ready to take on the world, which is a pretty cool feeling. It's also just full of so many wonderful, timeless messages about empathy and family and acceptance and gender, and it's always good to be reminded of those things, I think, and they're definitely good for you, so I guess that kind of makes it nourishing, because nourishment's good for you. This book is just the best book ever. I absolutely love it. If you haven't read it yet, then go and read it right now, or we can no longer be friends. Question 4 is Laugh, a book that brought you a little comic relief. As soon as I saw this question, I knew what my answer was going to be, and that is definitely Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. So in this book, Trevor Noah tells us stories of his childhood as he was brought up in South Africa under the apartheid. So because Trevor Noah was born during this time to a black mother and a white father, he was literally born a crime. This is an absolutely brilliant non-fiction book that includes a lot of very shocking and appalling moments surrounding the racism and discrimination that was rampant in South Africa at this time. And Trevor Noah does not shy away from any of this at all. He's very open about his own experiences and is very willing to share all of them with us very honestly. But this book is so witty and so humorous too. Trevor Noah, if you didn't know, is a comedian, and this definitely comes through in all of the stories. Basically, every other page has a hilarious moment that will make you laugh out loud. I think it's genius, and I would highly recommend picking it up if you haven't read it yet. Question 5 is Sex, a book that contains or explores sexuality that doesn't make you cringe. So my answer for this question is a bit of a steal, as it's what Beth said when she answered this question when she did this tag, but it's truly the perfect answer, and that is Days Without End by Sebastian Barry. So this is a historical novel that is set in the 1850s in America, and it follows our protagonist Thomas and his life companion John Cole as the two young men fight in the Indian Wars and also the Civil War. So we get to see a lot of different things that happen to these two men as the book progresses, including them adopting a young Indian girl and starting their own family. Sexuality and sex are both discussed in this book, but just in the most honest and frank way, and it's just incredibly refreshing. So Sebastian Barry doesn't use the sexuality of these characters as a plot device. It's not used to shock you or be showy or dramatic in any way, and I really appreciated that. Sexuality and love are just two very natural parts of these characters' lives. And Sebastian Barry just writes about them in such a way that he's just presenting you these characters and all of these different elements that make these characters themselves, with their sexual identity and gender identities just being a couple of them. The explorations of sexuality and love and gender identity are just a few of the brilliant strengths of this novel. It's fantastic, and this is me reminding you to go and pick it up if you haven't done so yet. Question 6 is Rest, a book that gave you peace, reflection, or just calmed you down. So for this question, my answer is going to be The Trouble with Goats and Sheep by Joanna Cannon. So this book is set in the summer of 1976 in a small village in England. And when an old woman goes missing on the street, two 10-year-old best friends, Grace and Tilly, decide to take it upon themselves to find out what happened to her. So I absolutely love reading about small towns in books. Small town settings are some of my favourites ever, and I think Joanna Cannon captured this perfectly. So learning about all the different people on the street with their different personalities and the different ways in which they interacted with each other was just so brilliant to witness. And I think that Joanna Cannon captured their Englishness very well. There are also lots of lovely little messages dotted throughout this book, and it definitely has coming of age vibes. And there are also just some really charming, humorous moments that springs out of the children's naivety and innocence. There was just something so lovely and comforting about this book while I read it. It has a real sense of community and real people, and I just loved it. It was definitely quite calming and relaxing for me to read, and overall it's just a really sweet read, and I would highly recommend it. And the final question is Experience, a book that introduced you to a new subject or shifted your perspective. For For this question, I'm going to talk about Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer. So this is a non-fiction book that talks about what meat is, where it comes from, and how it's produced. And it also details the social, economic, and environmental effects that producing and eating meat has. So it's actually quite interesting how this book came about. When Jonathan Safran Foer's wife fell pregnant, Jonathan decided to do his own research about what animal agriculture is and what it entails, just so he'd know what he was feeding his child. And after 3 years of very intense and shocking research, he decided to write it all down in a book so he could share what he found. So this book is basically a compilation of different facts and figures, and he details trips that he took to different family and factory farms, and he includes letters and emails between him and different companies. And overall, I just found it to be a very well-rounded depiction of what animal agriculture is. I didn't find it to be heavily biased in one way or another. It wasn't a pushy advocate for vegetarianism or veganism or any one position, really. So I was a vegetarian when I first read this book, but I hadn't been for long. And so I kind of had my own ideas about why I was vegetarian, and I knew a bit about the treatment of animals in the animal agriculture process, and I knew a bit about the really damaging effects that animal agriculture has on the environment, but I wasn't sure about any of it, and I definitely didn't know that much at all. And so this book definitely opened my eyes, and it didn't shift my perspective totally, it just kind of shifted my perspective to a more definitive belief system, if that makes sense. This book definitely reveals information about the animal agriculture process and its consequences that not many people know about. But as well as being really informative, Jonathan Safran Foer also makes it accessible and humorous. So overall, it's just a really good non-fiction book. So those are all my answers to this tag. I really enjoyed filming this one, it was a lot of fun. And I have found some people who I'm going to tag to do this if they want to. But like I said at the beginning, it's a very popular tag, a lot of people have already done it, and so I'm not sure if these people have already been tagged to do it by other people. I'm sorry if you have, but I'm going to tag you anyway. And those people are Renee from Renee Pierre, Rebecca from Rebecca Books, Laura from Paperback Winter, Cassie from Bookish Four Eyes, May from May Cho, and Kerry-Ann from Woman vs Books. So I'd absolutely love it if you all did this tag. I'd love to hear your answers. And also just anyone else who is watching who hasn't been tagged to do this but wants to, then definitely give it a go. Consider yourself tagged. So that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. I hope you're all having really nice weeks, and I'll see you next Wednesday with my next video. Bye.